gentlemen, we got to get into this conversation of next generation hardware. Now, look, we already know that there is more and more evidence that the next Xbox is potentially going to be what we've been hearing about. And that is this magical and mythical, squared box that looks like an Xbox, sounds like an Xbox, has an Xbox controller, but has PC level capabilities, meaning you'll be able to play Steam, you'll be able to play your Epic Game Store, maybe even good old games. Maybe you'll be able to play all of the stores on this thing. But a story came out where there are some people in Xbox that are currently playtesting the Steam Xbox integration. Now, what does that look like? I have no idea. That's not actually the story that we're getting into tonight. Getting into what is expected to be the dockable handheld. And I, when you put these two things together, I guess maybe on Front Street, maybe they don't make that much of sense to you. Maybe it does. So you're going to have this beast of a machine that's going to come out, and it's going to probably be very expensive. I would imagine nothing short of $700, in my opinion. It might even be $800 for all I know. But that is going to be what next generation is. And if the rumors on top of this being a open source box are anything to believe, of course, you got to then talk about the rumor that other makers are going to make Xbox consoles, meaning like Lenovo or like Dell or, pick your favorite brand. And maybe that does happen. Maybe it doesn't happen. But Hargeet, this dockable handheld is really I think for me, just reading the room is the most interesting of the conversation. Now, again, this story comes the way of Jez Corden of Windows Central. This story has already been added to the show notes. So if you want to read it for yourself, you simply got to click it and you go. And, there's a lot to get into here, but I kind of want to just focus on a very specific part, Hargeet, of the story. Now, Jez Corden goes on to say, from my previous reporting, Xbox Next Gen hardware is targeting around 2027. And though in parentheses, he says it's unclear if that's for the full launch or simply a reveal at this time, but I expect it to be the launch window. He goes on to say, from what I understand, there will be a true Xbox handheld made by Microsoft, complete with a docking station emulating the Nintendo Switch. Additionally, I'm expecting an Xbox Series X successor for those who want a more traditional console experience, potentially complete with the ability to sideload PC storefronts like Steam and Epic Games. And as interesting and exciting is of what the next big Xbox console is going to be, I think the most interesting aspect of this story is the handheld. And here's why. So we all know that, or we believe anyway, that the next generation of consoles, including the PlayStation 6, is going to be super expensive. What this sounds like to me, Hargeet, I want to get your thoughts on this. This seems like a Series X, Series S situation for next gen, right? You're going to have your traditional big box underneath the TV, your Series X for next gen. This handheld, which we thought was simply going to be a handheld, well, it appears that has changed, and it's going to be a dockable handheld, which means that you will be able to dock this handheld and your TV will turn on and you'll be able to play on the big screen. This, even though it's not going to be cheap, is going to be the cheaper option into Xbox gaming. And there might be a audience for an Xbox that goes with you anywhere, and then you can simply just come home and drop it in there and go, maybe this thing is $500, maybe this thing is $600, I don't know. But I think that this two-pronged approach and everything Xbox has going on with Xbox Anywhere, Xbox Everywhere. This is a PC, that's a PC, oh, it's an Xbox. I think that they are the most interesting aspect of what next gen is, well before we know anything about the PS6, their handheld, and potentially a Switch 3 in 5 or 7 years. Let's get your thoughts and your theories on this dockable handheld.
Yeah, so the assumption with the handheld is that it's going to be like a classic Xbox, and I don't know that it will or won't. We will see. There are potential rumors floating around. It might be ARM, and if it is, that could sort of change the potential of it being just an Xbox. It might be something that's a different target. It could be more like the Steam Deck, where it's a little different, but it plays the games in an emulation mode for whatever stores you want to put on there, right? And so we're not sure what this thing is going to look like. I'd also hesitate to say that it's going to be cheaper. I think it's still going to be relatively expensive in comparison to what we have today. Just kind of putting it at the level of, say, the ROG, those things are not cheap, right? So they have a cheaper model, but I don't think they're going to use that cheaper model. I think they're going to go with the normal model, and that's 7, 8 in that range. So, and look, any PC can be docked. It doesn't matter, right? You can use whatever you want. Any USB-C dock will work, right? So you can do that with the ROG Ally today. You can dock it. If they're going to include a dock, that's more money. So you just have to keep that all in mind, right? So I think it might be better if they don't do what the Switch does and keep it included, and rather just say, hey, if you want that feature, go buy it extra. There's an accessory for you. That might be a better way to keep the cost down. I don't know what the target for this would be. Like, there's, hey, when you make a game, it must be compatible with Series S and X because that is the current generation, right? I don't know what that's going to look like here, right? Because when you say that you can get games on Epic, you can get games on Steam, you've changed the entire paradigm. It no longer matters. You can get any game and it'll just, run, right? It's just an emulation mode that runs. If it's x86 native Windows, great. It just runs it native, no problem. If it's running some sort of emulated thing on top of ARM, which again, we're hearing rumors that might be the case, right?
Right.
Then you have some other potentials here. This could be running a stripped down Windows. It could be running a stripped down Android. It could be running a stripped down Linux. It could be, I don't know what they're going to do. There's all sorts of options, right? It changes the whole paradigm, right? And the reason, by the way, you would look at one of those other ones is Android is so well suited to running on a battery. It's already designed to do it, right? And so it's so well done.
Right.
You don't have to do that yourself, right? This is already sunk cost that somebody else took for you, right? And Google will continue to do it, right? So that's a good reason to look at that. And you say, well, hey, they have laptops, but laptops don't perform anywhere near as well as one of these things does. And if you want to get good power and long battery life, these guys have figured this stuff out, right? That's the thing. So you can just say, I don't want to pay for that, and let somebody else do that research for me. And Android's done it, right? So that's one of the reasons you take one of these and say, take it, right? And, if you're a smart company that just wants to make money, you take whatever's available. Android's free. It's freely available, right? So you can just go ahead and take it and use it. So there's a good potential for that, right? Linux tends to do better. It tends to be less resource hungry as well. Look, they can make Windows work, right? So that's another potential. I don't want to take that away. That's obviously still a potential for them, right?
Right.
But it, if they're really pushing the ARM thing, don't be surprised it isn't something weird, right? And totally different. And what they're trying to do is say, well, encompass that in a sellable package and sell it to people and say, you can have an Xbox 2, whichever XYZ partner. And that will just look like this, right? But our device will be this. And, people want to buy our device. Here it is. It'll have all the hardware for authentication and all that needs to happen for all their peripherals. If you want to use it that way, fair enough. All that stuff will be there. They'll have a whole canned solution of accessories and all that stuff. Awesome. But I don't know that it's going to be like you are forced to make this game run on this to release it on the normal console. I don't know that that's going to be the case, because I think they're going to basically say, we're treating this more like a PC. It'll just play anything that comes to PC. We don't care. And remember, their games, you buy on their store, it's available both, right? They give you cross entitlement. So from their perspective, it's their store and you get the game everywhere anyway. So they're trying to push that as their standard. But hey, if you want to get it on discount on like Steam or Epic, go at it.
Go ahead,
like,
they're
happy, right? So I think that's the world that I would see, and I think they're under the TV console might be a single SKU that you can target for performance. Again, it's going to have the same capabilities. I assume that one's going to be AMD, I think, right? But again, nothing's confirmed. But I think that's going to be AMD, and that one will be, just running x86 standard. It'll be native, and it'll just happen to have those other stores, right? So, but it will also have the Xbox store. So I think that's kind of my my headspace of where this is at. I would hesitate to say it's going to be cheaper. I think they're going to be pretty close in price. One gives you an option for portability. One gives you an option for maybe a bit more frames, more higher end graphics capability. Just keep that in mind, right? So it's up to you to choose the platform that makes more sense to you, right? They just give you choice. That's it. It's the way it always is with them. They just give you choice, and whatever choice matters to you, you can go with that one, right? So I think that's kind of that. At least is where I would see it going. But we are yet to see, right? This is years away. We are yet to see what will happen and how they will put it out there. But if it's up to me, that's what I would see as the next logical thing, to say the portable is disjointed from the console, because that bit them. They don't want to have to lock the releases to say you have to certify it on this and certify it on that. If they just say, hey, we just run games that run on PC, it makes that part so much easier, because then performance targets are kind of like, after the fact, hey, the Steam Deck is this. Or a lot of people certify their game for Steam Deck, right?
Yeah.
So then they can just do like the Steam Deck settings and make it work, right? If Xbox has a large number of these out there, that will probably happen as well, right? And so then there'll be a performance target for Xbox Portable, and like it'll just be the PC version, but there'll be performance targets you can just use. Maybe it defaults to it, recognizes, oh, hey, this is the Xbox Portable, cool. I'll just use these defaults, right? And away you go, right? So you don't have to go muck with it yourself, because that usually is another thing that console players don't generally like, even though they now have like do I want the 40 frames, or do I want the 60 frames, or do I want the 120 frames, or whatever? All that stuff is now available now on the consoles too, right? But generally people don't like to muck with all. There's a lot more on the PC side to be able to toggle things on and off, right? So I think that's one of the things that maybe if they can do that, that'd be great. People could just have performance targets. It's compatible with the portable. But that's really where I see it. I don't like, and again, we're years away. This is all rumor and speculation. We don't know, right? But if I were to do it, I would think of it that way. I still think you're looking at 7-ish at least for the portable. At least that would be my guess.
Wow. I mean, listen, next generation is going to be expensive. I think we all realize that they're no longer taking losses. I know Asante has been like dead set on that for sure. Okay, let's talk this portable. Again, this story comes the way of Jez Corden of Windows Central, where he has it on firm belief that this next console is going to be a dedicated Xbox or a Microsoft machine, but it's also going to be dockable. And again, Hargeet thinks that it's going to be comparable in price to the one underneath the TV, and what's separating the two consoles will be the portability aspect of it through the dock. And of course, you'll be able to take it and go and do your thing, versus this box is here. It's an open platform like the handheld, except it's got all the bells and whistles you could possibly imagine. I would imagine that there's going to be a cheaper option of the two. I believe it's going to be the handheld version of it. Again, that's just me, taking a stab in the dark. I want to get your thoughts on this though, because I think this is very interesting, because it does play very close to what they're doing right now with the Series X and the Series S. There is a cheaper version for gamers who don't want.
You are onto something, Boom.
So please elaborate.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are mimicking, or it seems, because it's all rumor and speculation on background.
Of course.
With a huge grain of salt. Absolutely. and I too have heard the handheld, the ARM rumors. We'll touch on that in a minute. They are definitely Boom playing with what you're describing. So, like for me, I don't know, man. I think the hardware will be interesting. I think it'll be interesting. Um, um, the Fox, whoever, if you guys know who the Fox is, great YouTuber who's very
Yes,
much
I've
about the
heard of
handhelds.
him.
Yes, I had him on my show some time ago. He's been spitting this for, I mean, since the Series S first showed up. He's like, oh, Microsoft's making a handheld. Why? Because the Series S, as small and as not capable as it is, has been artificially limited by Microsoft as far as power and wattage is concerned. And he's always wondered, why would you limit something that's plugged into a wall unless you're training your consumer base, that being your developer base, to get used to developing in this way. And as soon as the hardware that's available is able to, because one thing you should know, SoCs, system on chips, gain optimization benefits with every revision. So the same thing gets easier to do on that thing at the next revision and the next revision. So before long, something that used to run at like 15 watts now runs at like 10 watts, and it runs lower and lower as they get revisions more and more. So the idea being that where they lock the Series S, all you need is a 1 or 2 revisions, and now you're square in handheld territory. So he was super convinced that that's where they were going. Obviously, he had no prior knowledge to it, but I think he was right. Now, to the point of the ARM, I heard the same thing, and at first I was like, ARM, really? I wasn't really about that life, because yes, I love Android. I'm an Android user, but I had never really used Android to that fullest extent. And then I bought an Odin 2 portal. This is an Odin 2 portal. And because of this device,
Wow, it
I'm
looks gorgeous,
convinced that
dude.
ARM is the most awesome solution they could come up with.
Awesome.
This little thing plays BioShock Remastered, like the remake. I load like PC binaries in an emulator on here, and it's powerful enough to play these games at 1080p 60, locked. Now, not all games play perfectly here, but that's because it's code and it's, people doing it as their weekend projects. This is not being done by a multi-trillion-dollar company trying to make new hardware happen, right? So this has really convinced me that there's a lot of overhead here, right? Is it as powerful as your x86 device? Probably not. But to Hargeet's point, because of the way Android handles workloads, it's able to do so much more with a lot less. So since using this, I'm like, wow, this is going to be something else. I'm looking forward to seeing what Microsoft does with it. I can imagine, and to your point, Hargeet, they're not going to upend the development platform. They're not going to say, oh, now you're going to develop a different way. No, they're just going to either, I can see it go either way. Either, and I think it's more of a transition than anything else, like eventual step ladder. They will emulate, like they will decouple the virtualization with that console, and that's what will make it work on something like this, right? As long as you have the bandwidth, you can run it, and it'll emulate x86 within it, no issue, right? Even developers can continue to develop like they always have. You're making an Xbox game, continue to make an Xbox game. Continue to pretend it's a Series S, because it will be inside here, or whatever hardware that it's running on, right? The idea is just that whatever the host is, which is this device, has to have more power than the guest it's faking, right? And right now, in the chips that we pay attention to, like the Z1s and the Z2s and all this, they are right there, man. They are right there, right? And to what Hargeet was talking about with the rumors and what Jez Corden was talking about with docking stations and the like. These days, you don't technically even need to have a docking station that does anything except have a HDMI cable and a power cord.
Yep.
Nothing else. Why? Because there's something called the Strix Halo. Look it up. It's kind of wild. It is a monster system on a chip that we are waiting like with bated breath for the day that this thing shows up. But the reason why it's going to be difficult is because it takes so much power to run it that it takes like almost 30, 40 watts for it to get out of bed, right? But there's a way of having its resources until it's plugged into a wall, and then you unload the resources. What does that sound like? Sounds like an awesome handheld until you dock the thing, it recognizes it's in power, and now you're doing almost 4K 60. It's a monster of a device, and it's in retail. right? So if that's available, let's see what Microsoft can do. I think it's an interesting time. Like, I do agree that the standard paradigm of console is maybe behind us, but for those who are about the console, you're not about that hardware life, you don't want to be with Uncle PC or whatever, I think we should wait and see. I suspect that they will have something that will make you happy, right? It won't be what you're used to. Probably it probably may look a little different, or they'll try very hard to make it look exactly the same. But it may be some things, But ultimately, I think it'll work out, right? Because now you'll be able to take your existing library with you on the go, and you'll have access to PC, and you'll have access to hopefully more of your library. It is the amalgamation of that what we want. It is, right? Of course, I always say this, and y'all have heard me say this multiple times, so I'll say it again. The devil is and continues to be in the implementation details. Yeah. We shall see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, if you want an ARM-based system that's popular, the Nintendo Switch is an ARM-based system that's
exactly
popular. And the Switch
very
2
popular.
is also an
Yes.
ARM-based system that's popular, right? So,
yes.
So it's very viable. It is very viable. Yes. And Windows runs today. I have a Surface Pro that's a ARM-based Surface Pro.
I won't say it because if I did,
great.
Certain ninjas would come after us. But I will say that if I were to happen to try other ARM games on this thing, it would run it twice the speed for the same price as the other thing. So that's neither here nor there. Let's keep it moving.
But that's the kind of stuff, right? And so like Microsoft can, again, it's choice. You can say, hey, I want a native AMD 64, I want a native ARM 64, right? And so you can do either one, and it'll run well on those devices. So again, if they just put that out there as an option for their partners, it gives them the option to make a device that has compatibility with almost everything, but also has the performance with battery life, right? That's the big key when it's portable. It's that battery life, right? So yeah, this is all good stuff. We'll just see how, as you're saying, Asante, it's all in the execution, right? It's great on paper,
of course, yes,
until they make it happen. We got to see it actually happen. And I don't disagree that I don't think it can't happen, right? Because now they're borrowing Windows. Once they go to Windows is already doing all this stuff for the billion plus whatever things that are out there, and corporations are running off of it. So there's expectations that thing runs solid. It's not always perfect, but it is pretty good.
One thing, Hardeep, everyone that's talking about Windows, hating on Windows, I know, I hear you. I actually just got a Legion Go. I'm testing it for stuff. So I'm dealing with Windows right now. A lot of Windows, and Windows is not great in this kind of context. But like, there's Tiny 11. If anyone has heard of that, it's an official, like, proper Windows, but stripped to the bare, to the point where it runs on less than a gig of storage space, and it's like proper Windows. Doesn't have any of the background crap running. It just raw Windows in the game. And many people have been doing exactly this. If and when Microsoft is serious about Windows, they don't no longer have to load on the printer spool drivers, this, that, and they can customize it to its exact use. So it will be.
They've already sort of done that, right? That's what the Series X and Series S are. They are a Windows, but a very stripped down version that doesn't even have all the capabilities of playing games, because they have that in a separate game engine. What they really need to do is kind of merge that together. Again, it's the same build kit, right? So this is stuff they can do. They have the tech. They have everything there. They just need to put it together. And hopefully they do get it together and do it right. And I'm going to guess that's kind of a Windows 12 thing, right? That's what it's, it'll be.
I would assume so as well. I don't think we see that anytime soon. For somebody like me, please just release that software so we can install it on our own stuff.